Lovely. So welcome, Sarah. Welcome, Yvan. Over to you.
Okay. Hi, Catherine.
Welcome, everybody.
Good evening. I'd love to say thank you all for joining us tonight. This is actually our first ever spirits virtual tasting. So Yvan, thank you so much for doing this for us tonight. We've been quite used to having lots of winemaker tastings and masterclasses about different wine regions and all the rest. But this is our first full spirit focused event. So I'm delighted that you're able to join us, because Château d'Aurignac is such a special relationship for the Wine Society. I think I was incredibly lucky 3 years ago, I think now, to visit and to see the gorgeous chateau and to have wonderful desserts actually with your mother and to really get a sense and a feel for the place, which is such a special place. And I am really glad that we can talk today to members about this very special cognac and long-term relationship that we've had. But I know that they want to hear from you, and I know that you've got to us. So I will hand over, but thank you again so much for joining us.
Great. Hello and good evening, everybody. And welcome to Château d'Aurignac with a bright sunny day today. I think it's the same in England. So it's a lucky spring today. And my name is Yvan Meyer. I am I'm running the company, the Château d'Aurignac, but I also are a winemaker in Bordeaux. I work for Seychelles, which is a negotiation in Bordeaux, and I do their wines. So we might have had some relation through the society's claret or the sauvignon blanc. But tonight I will talk about my family estate, Château d'Aurignac in Cognac. First of all, I would like to thank, of course, Sarah and all the society's team to give me this opportunity to present Château d'Aurignac. It's, could you just drop the first picture, please? And also, I would like to thank all the Wine Society and Wine Society's member to support our family company since so many years and allow us to continue our passion of producing the best Pineau and Cognac we can. So that's a view of Aurignac where you can see the buildings, but also some of the vineyards and a large forest north of Aurignac. So we don't see much vineyard, but we will see a little bit. This gives you a general view of Aurignac. Before talking about Aurignac, I will present the Cognac and the region of Cognac. So can we have the other slide? Here is the map of the appellation Cognac. So it's on the west coast of France, southwest, north of the Gironde estuary, just north of Bordeaux. It's bordering the Bordeaux appellation. And the Cognac is, the whole region of Cognac is a large area. It's the biggest white grapes vineyard in France with 75,000 hectares. Just to give you an idea, in comparison, Armagnac is 8,000 hectares and Champagne is 30,000 hectares. So it's twice the size of Champagne. So it's a very large vineyard in France. And the appellation Cognac is divided in 6 different crus that you can see on the map. All around the town of Cognac in the middle, you've got Grande Champagne, then Petite Champagne, Borderie, and then in yellow, you've got the Fins Bois. In yellow, on the green is the Bois Ordinaire, Fins Bois, and then Bois Ordinaire. So all those different regions within Cognac have a specified type of soil, and we at Aurignac are in the yellow in the Fins Bois. So usually it's written on the label. You see Cognac Fins Bois or Cognac Borderie, and that gives you a more precise idea where it comes from. The yellow is mainly clay and limestone, and that gives of what we understand from the terroir, it gives some very good cognac for aging. The general vineyard in Cognac is planted with one main grape variety, which is the ugni blanc, and it's covering, I think, 98% of the vineyard. So it's a dominant grape variety. It's a fairly productive grape with giving high yields, around 110 hectoliters per hectare. Same thing, to give you an idea, in Bordeaux, we're about 50 hectoliters per hectare. So it's twice what we produce per hectare. But it's producing a large quantity of grapes of fairly high acid and relatively low sugar. So it gives wine that are not very aromatic, that are fairly acid, but they are absolutely great for distillation and making cognac. The Cognac region is organized commercially around about 4,200 growers that are cultivating their vineyard, and then they sell their wine. They make the white wine, and they sell this white wine to the big, large negociants, as you know, we know them: Martel, Courvoisier, NC, and so on. So there's about 10 big companies that has been dominating the market, and they sell their wines to those companies, and those companies distill a wine into eau de vie, age them, and then sell them under their own brand. So that covers about 90% of the cognac market. It's a very specific organization. And on the other side, on the other part of the market, there are a few independent growers like Château d'Aurignac that control every step of the production, from the vineyard, the vinification, the distillation, aging in barrels, bottling, and sales. It is qualified then as a single estate. Sometimes you see single estate on a label, and that means that everything is done at the property. So we are at the far end of the negotiation, producing us very limited quantity, and we try to do, you know, as fine cognac as we can. But it's so that's why on the market you rarely see Château cognac, because mainly they are sell under, you know, big company names. Château d'Aurignac.
Most comparable to champagne and champagne's
production. Right, exactly.
Grower champagnes, although perhaps it's more polarized within cognac.
Exactly. Where in other regions it's more divided in producer, but that's how it is organized. So, and Château d'Aurignac is located in the Fins Bois appellation, as I told you, in these little spots along the estuary of the Gironde estuary, donc facing the Médoc. So we are very close to so we got a very close weather as the north of the Médoc. Can you slide the other picture, please? Voila. So that's a view of the farm of Aurignac, because and I will present you a little bit the history of the property. It's a very beautiful place, and the history, in fact, number 4, I will show you a picture of the Château at the beginning of the century. In fact, the first known record indicates that in the year 1200, and since has always been known for its spirit production. So it's been nearly 800 years that we are producing cognac on this property. It is in the early 18th century that the existing building took place. So that's it's not the building are not that old. You can change the pictures, and we will see how it is now. So that's a picture of the building now. Part of the farm is older, but but the chateau has been built in the 18th century. In fact, it belongs to my family since 1920, so exactly 100 years ago, when my grandfather bought it. In fact, he was an engineer, and at this time, you have probably heard about phylloxera, because in France, the production of vines and vineyards was very important at this stage. That was in 1850s, 1860s. And the production was very important. The consumption of wine was really big, and the industry of the wine was a big thing at that stage. But we face the phylloxera, which was a disease, a little insect that was killing all the vineyards. And that was an absolute disaster for the industry, the wine industry at that time. And it killed most of the vines that were planted in France. You can imagine the situation. And by chance, my grandfather find out that the rootstock, so the part of the vine that are on the ground, underground, in America, were resistant to this little insect. So he import rootstock from America and graft on them the grape variety in France. And slowly he replanted a large part of France. So that's how he made fortune. He had 4 daughters, and he bought for each of them one property, and Aurignac is one of them. So our past is very linked to the phylloxera, which is amazing. And then from 1920s, then my grandfather took over. He was an admiral in the French Navy and during the Second World War. And from then my father did, and 25 years ago I took over the property and the production. So there are 5 generations. We can see a picture of the entire family. You will see it's a large family. They don't all live in Aurignac, but they come very often. And I am in charge of making the property run. And that's give you an idea of the size of the family. In this unique environment of Aurignac, we produce not only vineyards. We have, next slide, please. We have, that's right. We have 20 hectares, which is fairly small property in Cognac. And we've got 20 hectares of ugni blanc and colombard, mainly ugni blanc, but we also have a little bit of colombard, which is also a white grape variety. And we have 2 hectares of merlot and cabernet for the Pineau des Charentes that we do. But also on the property, we raise Limousin cattle that you can see on the pictures. They look very happy. They got a lot of space. They are very pleased to be there. But we also raise kids. Kids next. You can see them on next slide. So those kids, it's an Indian tribute in charge of the cattle herd. So it's a very alive, enlivening property, and we try to keep this great sensation of having many people coming there.
I think I saw from the aerial shot the swimming pool and the tennis court. I can imagine that all of the family come every summer to visit for many different reasons. But
they are more often
literally idyllic.
They are more often at the swimming pool than in the vineyard helping me, but they do good properly.
I'm sure.
And now I will present you a little bit the vineyard and what we do in the vineyard. So this little vineyard, next slide, please. That's right, that's me, because the terroir of Aurignac is very specific, composed with limestone and clay. And we work all year long to preserve this exceptional environment and limit at the maximum our impact. For example, we don't use any mineral fertilizer, but only cattle manure from the farm. Also, as you can see on the picture, every year after the harvest, we sow seeds from different specific plants like mustard and clover, that will we will let them grow until the next spring. That's the picture you can see. And then we bury them, and their degradation into the soil will then therefore bring some nitrogen and organic material and will contribute to the life of the soil. Because you have to understand that the key, the fundamental key is the soil. And if you have a soil which is alive and well treated, then the vines will grow easier with less disease and will give better fruit and so on. So it's all an organization, and here you can see on the pictures some mustard, and behind you have it's a brand new plantation. It's just little vine that we planted this year. So that was the first part of the presentation. It was a general presentation on the property, the Cognac and the Cognac region, and I think we can move on to the product, because that's probably what you are expecting the most. If that's
it's so lovely to see the connection with your history with the Wine Society as a winemaker at Seychelles, as well as cognac coming from grapes. I think so easily we forget the base ingredient of spirits, and we talk all about the process of distillation. But
right.
So it was lovely to see those photos. Thank you.
No, with pleasure. So I will try to explain briefly the Pineau des Charentes. You probably have heard about Pineau des Charentes. I think we have a picture of the bottle. In fact, Pineau des Charentes is a blend of grape juice and eau de vie. Eau de vie is a young cognac. After distillation for 2 years, before it becomes cognac, it's called eau de vie. So the Pinot is a blend of 2/3 of grape juice and 1/3 of eau de vie. It is, as the region is planted in white grapes, it is usually made with white grape juice from ugni blanc, which is fairly low in sugar and high in acidity. And it is blended with young eau de vie, young cognac. So it's always a little bit hard to match those different components, the low acidity, the high acidity, the young cognac, and the low sugar. But at Aurignac, instead of using white grapes, we use red grape juice from merlot and cabernet. So we start at the beginning with something very different from the others. That's why this Pinot, I will explain you why this Pinot is different from the others. But the first thing is the grape juice. It's merlot and cabernet. So it's harvested, pressed, and we obtain a must that is pink and with high level of sugar, natural sugar, and low acidity. And at Aurignac, we blend them with old cognac, 4 to 5 years old cognac. So we don't have this very burning sensation that brings the eau de vie, but we already have some mature cognac to blend. And from there, we start an aging in barrels for 5 to 7 years. This long aging in barrel in the small cellar you can see on the pictures will match the different flavor between the alcohol, the acidity, and the sweetness. And there is a little micro oxygenation for those long time. And when you taste the different barrels year after years, you start from a very fruity grape juice aroma to something more complex year after year. And we end up after 5 to 7 years to something very specific. And that's how we make the Pinot at Aurignac. So it takes about nearly 10 years to produce one bottle. And so economically, it's probably not the best way to do it. But I'm convinced that in terms of quality, we obtain something really, really unique. We are very few producers to still do this winemaking, but we end up with something very specific, and I really love the balance between those different aroma and the complexity. So we can, if you have, any of you have a glass, I will, say cheers for you. And
very glad to be joining you with a glass, Yvan. Yes. Although I may do a very quick idiot's guide to distillation, if you don't mind correcting any mistakes I make very quickly. I think we went through the process of making the wine, and you're growing the grapes and pressing this juice that is relatively simple, but with high acid, so perfect for distillation. And
yes.
that is through first fermentation, as you would make normal wine.
Yes.
And that liquid, that juice, is put into the distill, so into the copper pot stills.
Right.
And that's heated, and the alcohol in there
sure
then maximizes, or is concentrated as the water boils off. What's important within cognac is, of course, the double distillation.
Right.
That is unique. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I will go through the process with the cognac.
Oh, perfect.
No, just after that.
Then please forgive me. Let's stick to the Pineau. We will.
So the Pineau
I think Catherine, you're also trying the Pineau. If you want to join us, I think she's got a glass on the go.
Okay.
I do. I actually just said to Anna behind the scenes that actually it's almost too easy to drink. It's very smooth, isn't it? It's it's delicious. I really enjoy it. We've got some people in the chat as well that are definitely enjoying a glass as well.
No, it's great. I like the color, because at the beginning, when we put it at the beginning into the barrel, it's pink, but this pink color disappears after the years and appears this very, I don't know how you say, brown and color at the end. And the complexity on the nose, to me, is also really impressive and really interesting. And the length in mouth, because like wines, I think the most important thing is the balance between the different aroma, the savor, between the acidity, the alcohol. And I think in this Pinot, after it needs 5 or 7 years in barrel to reach that very harmonious sensation in mouth. So you have to drink it cool at cool temperature from the fridge. But you pour a little glass comfortably seated in a sofa in front of a good movie or a fireplace, and that's really one of the time I love to drink the Pinot. We drink Pinot very often at Aurignac, but we drink it also as an aperitif. Just when you put the bottle into the fridge, you can pour a little glass every day, and the bottle will stay. You can keep the bottle half empty or half full for weeks and weeks. The wine, the Pinot is stable, and also that sweetness and this little cognac aroma fit really, really well with blue cheese. I think that's one of the best way I like to taste it is the blue cheese, because we got the opposition between the strengths of the blue cheese and the sweetness of the Pinot. So please, if you have the chance, and drink a little glass with your blue cheese, and you will see it's a perfect blend, I think. And
I think that's not only a fantastic match, but your suggestion of keeping it in the fridge is the absolute key to enjoying great Pinot, because it's so refreshing when a little bit chilled, and the balance, as you say, really seems to come into line then. So definitely a good tip for members. Do keep your Pinots in the fridge and enjoy it in little small glasses or measures with blue cheese of an evening or before dinner, as you say, Yvan, as an aperitif. It's a bit of a treat.
and you can keep it in the fridge for a long time. So, but you will see the bottle by itself will get down fairly quickly. You will go back to the fridge very often. No, but it's true. It's a very, it's something people like to discover. When people say, "Well, I've never tasted any Pinot," or "I've tried some Pinot but didn't really like it," this is very specific Pinot, and some people say, "Wow, I've never tasted anything like this, and it's really different from what I know." So it's what I like in this business, is to find things, to discover new things and new wine. And I think this Pinot de Charentes is something unique, and that's why I do it with hobby, and I spend a lot of energy to keep it like this, because I think it's always a pleasure to make people discover it. So, and that could, also with this dessert, with fruit, you can have a little glass of Pinot. But as we do in the family, we get addicted very, very easily to the Pinot. Voila. So yes, that's I think really something to discover. Sarah, any precision on the Pinot? Do you want, or do
no,
we?
I think it's a hidden secret of an artisanal product. Really, I have always felt that if members just try it, as you say, cold and perhaps with some food, then once bitten, you're in life. It seems.
No, it's true.
Definitely one of those drinks that you find a place for once you've got the taste for it.
And the sweetness is balanced by the acidity, so it doesn't appear to be too sweet. It's just and it's not too strong. If you're not too keen with the high alcohol like cognac, I think it's a very good approach to those spirit product.
Absolutely.
Okay, about cognac now. To start again, Sarah, you're right. We harvest, to make me clear. We harvest the white grapes. We bring it back to the cellar. We press them, obtain a white juice. And this white juice is then sent to a tank for the alcoholic fermentation, naturally with yeast. And those yeast, they transform the sugar of the grape juice into alcohol. Okay, so after 8 to 10 days, we obtain a white wine, a dry, without sugar, and that is called the vin de base, the basic wine for the distillation. And that is roughly at the end of now October. It used to be November, but with the climate change, we usually end up the fermentation by the end of October. So from that time we can start the distillation. And distillation is controlled by the state, because we produce alcohol, and alcohol equals taxes. So the state want us to control how much we produce. So it's very strictly followed, and we can distill from the end of October to the end of March the next year. So during 2 to 3 months, it's a continuous process, a 24-hour process, where we take some white wine from the tanks, and we put it into the boiler of the alembic, and we heat this boiler. So the alcohol evaporates before the water, and so we separate by distillation, by vapor. We separate the alcohol from the water, and then cool it down with water, and so we separate the alcohol and the water. In Charentes, we've got what we call a double distillation. So we start from a wine that is about 10 degrees alcohol. We heat it up on the first step and obtain a a product that we call brouillis, which is at 30 degrees alcohol. So we got a concentration of 3 times. And then the second step is to take this brouillis and to send it back to the alembic again for the second distillation. And that's where in the second distillation, we obtain the eau de vie, which is at about 65 degrees alcohol. So it's a very high alcohol. And from that stage, it's called eau de vie. And we, for 2 years after the harvest, it has the right to be called eau de vie, but not cognac. And it's only after 2 years of aging in barrels that it becomes cognac. And the cognac, it's a little bit of history. When the English wine and German and Norway wine merchant Martel and C and everything came in the 17th century and find out that the cognac was really good, they imported them into their country and came back into the year after and say, I want the same. But as the demand was, you need to produce 6 or 7 or 10 years before you sell them, they simplified everything. And instead of selling vintage cognac, they say, okay, we will simplify it and we will create categories, which is VS, very special, VSOP, very special old pale, or extra old. And those 3 categories of aging simplify the offer. And for the consumer at that time, and even now, it's easier to understand what you buy. So that's how, so from the beginning, you've got 2 years. And then if you have 3 more years, at least you obtain what we call the VSOP. At this time, the cognac, which started at 65 degrees alcohol, slowly by itself will evaporate through the oak. It's what we call la part des anges. So it's the alcohol that is evaporating through the barrel. You will get slowly down to 55 degrees alcohol naturally. And then before you bottle it, or you blend it with other vintage, but before you bottle it, we bring it down to 40 degrees alcohol to be able to bottle it. Okay. So we have here, we are producing at Aurignac, we have the great chance and opportunity to do the society's cognac at Aurignac. And that is a specific blend I do with blending different age cognac. The youngest would be largely over 5 years, and some are even older than 10 years. I do that by tasting, and I create that blend, the VSOP Society's cognac. And then we've got another category that I do after 10 years at the minimum. That's the cognac. And then we've got the XO, and that is over 10 years. So that's, and we do the bottling, we do the blend and the bottling at the Château. We produce a very small amount of cognac and Pineau. You have to imagine that it's really something we do by hobby, and the vineyard is small, so we try to keep this and do our best to do it. The great chance I have compared to others is I make my life out of my job in Bordeaux. So I have no economic pressure to blend the cognacs I want. And that's a great opportunity. And I do it by hobby. So I do it, choosing the barrels really that I want, even if they are much older than what, the law imposes. So then just a little word on cognac. The way because some people don't really know how to taste it aside to the to the digestif, but you can for the VSOP you can blend it in cocktail just before dinner also with ginger ale, and you can have you take a glass, you take a little proportion of 2 centiliters of lemon juice, and then 4 centiliters of cognac, of VSOP, and then ginger ale and ice, and you will see it brings some very fresh, and the ginger ale will dilute the cognac, and you can drink it as an appetizer. But you can also drink it as we do, also in the sofa in front, in the winter or after a good dinner, and it's same thing. What I like is the length, and that keeps it in your mind, in your mouth, and makes this really something I really like.
Yeah. No, I'm lucky enough to be sipping on it at the moment, and I was going to say, if anyone else is tasting spirits along with us, you don't necessarily need to taste them in the same way as wine. I think we both, Yvan and I, are in the very big habit of swilling everything. I swill water and cups of tea, but with spirits, they're so much more powerful that you don't necessarily need to swill to such a degree, because they will come to you through the aroma. But also, you may want to have a very little taste first to adjust your palate to the strength of the alcohol, and then have another taste, which is actually when you'll start to feel the flavors and the complexity coming through. So don't worry that drinking or trying the spirits is a little bit different to the wine. Although, even I notice you're using a wine glass for yours. I've gone for a brandy glass here, so
Great.
help pull the perfume forward. The Society's VSOP, I'm very biased. Everyone will know on this call, but it is a fantastic, complex, rich cognac to be available, I think, at this value. It's definitely got sort of all those classic cognac tastes, fruitcake aromas, and some very fresh lemon. I'm getting sort of lemon verbena, but also those lovely oak notes that come through. Yeah, it's definitely a treat.
Yes, the aging of the quality of the cognac is done, of course, with the wine at the beginning, the way you distill, and the temperature, where you manage the temperature during distillation. That is very important. But also aging, and aging depends on how much. It's all aged in French oak barrels. But as the alcohol is strong, if you extract a lot from the oak, so we try at Aurignac not to use too much new oak, to not cover the characteristic of the cognac by the oak. So it's slightly oaked on the nose, but I think the limit where I like it is it's keeping that fruit from the cognac.
I think you're spot on, because the fruit is definitely the first part of the cognac that you're tasting here. You're not noticing the oak until perhaps the finish, where it then starts to come through in that sort of more nutty presence rather than a sweet vanilla flavor. I think we've got a lot of people saying your cocktail suggestion is a winner. I was going to say my favorite cocktail, although I have to admit I don't usually use a cognac as good as yours for it, but would be a classic champagne traditional cocktail. So wonderful. And for any members out there, it's my go-to New Year's Eve drink, which is a lethal combination, because it's a shot of cognac. If you pour it into a champagne flute over a cube of sugar that you've already put some Angostora's bitters on, and then top it up with champagne, and it makes a fabulous, very decadent and lethal cocktail. I highly recommend it.
Excellent. Okay. Do you want to is there any question, or do you want any more?
I think, do we have the XO? We've got a picture of the XO, I think, to go. Just because I think this is a new listing for the Wine Society. We started listing this relatively recently, so in the last year, and it's featured in the current French offer. But I wanted to just highlight it because it's often, I think, XOs are at a price point that are very hard to get to. And you also don't often know the age. And you were talking, Yvan, that this cognac you will blend to your taste.
Right.
Old cognacs. So this is something very special at hopefully a price that's affordable for a treat.
And it's a very tiny production.
Yeah, a little bit more about the XO would be great.
Yeah, yes. No, the XO is to me the perfect combination of what I like in the cognac. But it takes, I like to use some cognac about 10 to 12 years old to get some fruit, and then go into the cellar to bring some much older cognac to get some complexity to it. And even if it's at 40 degrees alcohol, it seems to be soft and round, and that's really what I enjoy in that little cuvée, yeah, of XO. It's a very tiny one, but it's all the concentration of all the energy we put at Aurignac, under the cognac.
I have to say I was blown away when I tasted it. So no, it's got that more perhaps orchard fruits like peach and nectarine, as well as then perhaps richer flavored nuts like walnuts or pecans that come through. It's really a very special drop.
Yeah,
not
with the
cigars, but wonderful for any evening that needs a bit of a pick-me-up.
Oh,
that's wonderful. Thank you for taking us through the I was going to say the wines, but of course I mean the cognacs. And Anna and Catherine, do we have some questions that we might want to go to? I've been seeing lots coming up in the chat, but I haven't monitored.
We do. We've got some great questions that have come through, actually. So the first one we've got is from. Sorry,
Catherine, I think we've muted you there. Sorry.
Trying to cut me off. Let me start again. So the question we've got first is from Alan Pierce, and he would like to know how much is lost to the angels. And perhaps you could explain what that term means to anyone that might not be familiar with it.
That's a good question. Alors, the general part des anges, so it's when you put the cognac, the eau de vie, into the barrels, in the French oak barrels, some of the alcohol evaporates through the oak. Okay, and as we're in a cellar, it creates a specific moistures on the walls, and those moistures are very important to keep the cellar in good condition. So we never remove them, but it takes about 100 years to get a real cellar for aging cognac, because slowly every year it's in between 2 to 3% that evaporates every year, to answer your question. So the alcohol is getting down of about 2 to 3% per year. So if we leave a cognac into a barrel, depending on the cellar, it can take about 35 to 40 years to the cognac to go naturally without water from 65, 70 degrees alcohol, slowly year after year to 40 degrees alcohol.
Excellent. So the next question we've got is from Roger, and he's asking about the barrels used and whether they are used exclusively for cognac, or are they barrels that have been have had prior use, like when making whiskey?
No. The cognac, we use only because it's a strong alcohol. We could have thought of using, wine, a barrel from wine and everything, but as the extraction is stronger, we only use new barrels to renew our stock. But the proportion is small, because as I was telling you, one barrel of cognac can age for 40, 50 years. So you can use it for 40, 50 years. The evaporation through the oak is still there, but it's giving less oak aroma to the cognac. So we play with a small proportion of new oak every year, but much less than into the wine. But the cognac, they use only only barrels for cognac.
Perfect. So we've got a question from John Glanville, who'd like to know the main reason for the second distillation of cognac.
That's a very good question. If you talk to people in Armagnac, because in Armagnac they do a straight single distillation. People in Armagnac say that's the best way to do it. So you start from the wines and you go all the way to 60 degrees alcohol. And then the people in Charentes, they said, no, the best way to do it is in 2 steps. So very honestly, we have done that since ever in 2 stages in Charentes, but I would not be able to tell you exactly what difference it makes. Because you have to know that during distillation, the alcohol evaporates, but the alcohol is composed by hundreds of different molecules of alcohol. And depending on the speed of the distillation, the heat, you have a composition of the eau de vie that is different. So there is certainly a difference between both processes, but I'm also convinced that everybody is convinced that they have the best way to do it. Us in Charentes and the other one in Armagnac. But that's a good question. It makes to answer clearly, it makes us a difference in style, but everybody in Charentes do it by double distillation.
We've had a question from Roger Mackenzie asking whether cognacs exist with an age statement. It never occurred to him that they might not. Is that something that does exist?
What is it again?
With a sort of a statement of age. So I suppose similarly to a whiskey, you'd have sort of a 3-year-old, a 12-year-old. Is that?
Or even a vintage?
Oh, yes.
We could do a single vintage cognac, but I think of my experience, it's always richer to blend different cognac from different years because you associate different aroma. So we rarely push for single vintage. We rather blend them, but then it's so complicated for the consumer to understand because what is important is the time the cognac spent into the barrel. As soon as you put it in bottle, it doesn't evaluate. Okay, so you can buy a 2013 cognac, but that spent only 5 years in barrel, or you can buy a 2013 cognac that spent 10 years in barrel. So when you buy vintage cognac, it doesn't really mean, it means it comes from one vintage, but that doesn't give you any information on the aging. Okay. And also, as I was explaining you, it's easier it comes from the history, but at that time, where the demand was very big, they were, and in Holland and everything, they were making those category XO VS to simplify the comprehension. But it's true that you can have an XO of Aurignac that is way over 12 years old in average, and then some XO on the market that are just 10 years old. And that is, it's hard to know before you get information from the production.
The next question we've had is from Alan Hobby, and he is asking, he's saying that there are few small producers of cognac, but hundreds producing Pineau de Gironde, not necessarily as good as yours. But why is there such a big difference in the numbers of production?
Producer, because the market of Pineau is small, and as I was telling you, the way we do the Pineau at Aurignac is economically not really not really
possible.
Yes. And everything, I see my account people coming to Aurignac, they say, you still do your Pinot, and it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years to produce. And if we count the money for 10 years, it doesn't. So that's why less and less people are doing the Pinot this way. And so it's not the same price also, but that is the main difference, I think. And that's why there are few producers of Pineau, because we're not very, but there are still people like me that really believe in the product. So spend some energy to do it.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of questions about the frost situation. Obviously, we're all quite aware that it's having a bit of an impact at the moment. Is that something that is having an impact for you?
Sure. Yes, that was not later than 10 days ago. France was very impacted by the frost. It's a stage of where the vineyard just start pushing, and the little leaves are very sensible to the frost. The frost is affecting the yield, the quantity we will produce. It doesn't have a real effect on the quality. So usually people say, well, it is economically a disaster because we will produce small amount next year, but it could be of a very good quality, because the less the vineyard has to ripe, the better the grapes are. So on one side you lose volume, but on the other side, it's one of the key. It's not the only key, but it's one of the key that will help the vintage to be. So but it's been this year very, very strong. I think it's hard to know exactly how much we lost, but I think I would say about 35% of the production overall in France. And it's very rare to have a frost like we had last week that is affecting all the vineyard in France.
Absolutely. And with the Pinot de Charentes, we've spoken about, how long that can then keep once opened in the fridge. But with Cognac as well, how long will that keep? How should you keep it? And perhaps how would you serve it as well? Is it always an after dinner drink?
Well, yes, you have to really understand all the aging we do in barrels. The Pinot or the Cognac is in contact with the air within the barrel. So it's the same thing after when it's in bottle. You can keep it for very long time, even if it's half full. And Cognac can be, kept outside in a cupboard without problem. And depending on if you want to drink it with ice, on a cocktail, or just with ice by itself, or after dinner as a digestive.
And what sort of glassware? So obviously Sarah's had the balloon sort of style glass. Yourself, you've been using more of a wine glass. Is that a big thing to kind of worry about? Do you need to?
No. Sarah is right. The only thing is I am in Bordeaux right now at the office, and at the office we produce wine. So the only glass I found was a glass of wine, but I'd rather use a real Cognac because it's opening the aroma much better, and you can keep it in your hand. So your hand is heating the Cognac and favoring the flavor.
Excellent. I've had quite an interesting question from Peter Cousins. He's asking whether there are clear differences between Cognac and Armagnac. He's never made a head-to-head comparison, so uses it interchangeably. What would you say to that?
No, that's another excellent question, because the two vineyards are not very far. The grape variety are about the same, and the process, one is double distillation, one is single distillation. But with the aging, you can make there is the terroir that is giving a certain specificity to the Cognac and to the Armagnac. But to be very honest, with all Cognac aged over 20 years and all Armagnac, sometimes even for me, I've got a very hard time finding if it's a Cognac or an Armagnac. So. But the main difference comes from the past, is because Cognac was along the coast, it was easier for the English people to import it, or Norway in the past century. So the business was much easier through the port of La Rochelle and Rochefort, where you have to go all the way to Armagnac. So Armagnac didn't develop as much as Cognac at that stage. And that's how 300 years later, how Cognac is much more known and larger than Armagnac.
Absolutely, perfect. Lovely. And I think, let's have a look just at the questions we've got coming in. I mean, we've had a question that we get for most of our events, and it's whether after COVID, are you open for visitors? Can people come and visit Chateau d'Aurignac?
Yeah, yes, with great pleasure. That would be, it's thanks to the support of all the members by buying the Pineau. That's allow us at Aurignac to maintain this property and to continue this fabulous story. So I would be very, very pleased to receive them. My father is living there every day with my mother, but they're all person. But it's if ever you go through the region, we'll be very pleased to receive you there with great pleasure. And if I am there, I will make you a great tour of the different barrels of Pineau to understand and Cognac. So with pleasure. So go through the Wine Society and they will give you my contact.
Excellent, wonderful.
No, with great pleasure. But thanks to the support of all the members, you have to realize how important you are for us, because all that property lives with all the support you bring us. So it's really, really pleasant for us and great for us. Thank you to all the members.
And I think perhaps just to wrap up, perhaps yourself and Sarah can maybe share what some of your favourite food matches would be to a cognac, or perhaps something that you would also have with a cognac that's maybe not food, maybe a nice sit down in an armchair in a fancy dressing gown.
Yeah, that's right. I think the way I drink it is really after a good meal in the sofa, or in front of the TV, like either Pineau or Cognac. It needs time. It's a relaxing time where you got a little bit of time in the evening and where things are quiet, and that's where you enjoy, very just smelling and just drinking a little drop of Cognac. And that's the way I think I appreciate it the most.
For me, I think the sweetness in the Pineau enables it to go with quite a lot of food. So it's like salty cheese or even salted meats, those kind of, sweet salt mix for me always does very well. And of course, it will also go with desserts that are perhaps not too sweet, because you always want the drink to be slightly sweeter than the dessert. But for me, the Cognac is just a wonderful evening pleasure. But it's when I'm sort of grazing. So maybe when I've got some very posh chocolates, possibly dark chocolate rather than too sweet. Or if I've got at Christmas, I often get candied nuts or salted nuts and Cognac as well. Or even just crisps, a big bag of kettle chips and Cognac. Because unlike perhaps even, I feel that when I'm drinking Cognac, and usually I go back for a second glass, which is perhaps my own lack of self-control. But I definitely need some food with it. So it's to take the edge, and perhaps a glass of water next to it, because it can be a bit lethal. It goes down once I think your palate gets used to the level of alcohol. Good Cognac, like this VSOP or the XO, can slip down dangerously easily.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Now, if you have a chance to once taste the Pineau, you will see it's something that really unique. And every time I make people taste it, they say, well, thank you, because I discovered something I didn't know. And it's all flavored, and I am very fond of it. But it's I hope you will be.
Yeah, I don't think my open bottle is going to last particularly long.
That's a great
I think by the end of the weekend, it will be in the recycling. But thank you, Sarah and Yvan, for giving us some excellent ways of enjoying it and a real great introduction to it, and especially for our first Spirit event. It's been a wonderful way to spend the hour with you both this evening. So thank you very much, and
thank you
members for joining us as well.
Super.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you again, Yvan.
Thank you to all the members.
Cheers, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy the sunshine on a Thursday.
Bonne santé. Merci.